Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are diving straight into a fascinating, deeply analytical, and admittedly kind of controversial teardown of a very basic concept: what actually counts as economic wealth creation. We throw words like production and growth around all the time, right? But if we don't define them correctly, we can completely misread the health of an entire society. Our source material today is going to help us perform a meticulous autopsy on how an economy truly functions.
So is currency speculation equivalent to real production? Ask yourself, if someone spends all day just buying and selling dollars, are they actually producing anything of real value for their country, or are they just riding the waves of inflation?
To answer that properly, we're going to map out exactly how an economy creates wealth using these 5 steps. First, the enigma of production. Second, the cycle and value add. Third, the illusion of growth. Fourth, why imports do not equal production. And fifth, the path to welfare.
Step 1. The enigma of real production. Our source material today actually goes after a highly debated editorial from the Eqtisad newspaper. That article basically grouped activities like currency speculation, subway peddling, and kolbari, which is the physical carrying of goods across borders, under the exact same umbrella as heavy industry and agriculture. And well, our source argues that doing this is a massive scientific fallacy. You literally can't confuse informal survival activities or rent-seeking with genuine value-creating industries. We absolutely have to define our terms transparently, because if we don't, we fall into these misleading traps that completely skew our understanding of the economy.
Moving to Step 2. The economic cycle and value add.
To see why grouping a subway peddler with, say, a wheat farmer is totally flawed, we've got to look at the absolute basics of how goods move through society. It's a 3-step cycle. Step 1 is production, combining land, labor, and capital to make something brand new. Step 2 is distribution, where wholesalers and retailers move that product. And Step 3 is consumption. The source points out that your local grocer or a clothing seller, they belong purely to Step 2, their distribution. Are they vital? Absolutely, but they are not the producers. Getting this distinction right sets the foundation for everything we're talking about today.
So what is the ultimate metric of real production? It's value added. That's just the economic difference between the value of a final good and the cost of the raw materials used to make it. Our source really stresses this. True production has to generate this value add. Why? Because that is exactly what creates real societal income. It's literally the only legitimate basis for a government to collect taxes. If you aren't creating added value, you aren't generating any new wealth for society at all, period.
Which brings us to Step 3, the illusion of growth and pseudo-production.
Look at the stark contrast here. On one side, you have real production, agriculture, manufacturing, stuff that physically transforms raw materials into new goods, genuine value. On the other side, you've got pseudo-production, currency speculation, cross-border carrying, street peddling. These activities just shuffle money around in the super complex system. The actual product doesn't change form, and zero new value is added to the national economy. It's like a mirage. It looks like growth, but it's really just an illusion of economic expansion.
Now, to show you just how deep this illusion goes, our source uncovered a really shocking statistic. Are you ready for this?
On one specific day, internet traffic data showed that a massive 93% of users were tracking currency exchange rates online. 93%? Meanwhile, a tiny 4% were looking up actual economic data or market research. I mean, think about that for a second. The source asks a really tough question here. Why is an entire society staring at exchange boards instead of focusing on building and producing?
Well, the answer isn't that people are just inherently flawed. Our source argues this obsession is a direct symptom of broken fiscal, monetary, and trade policies. When you combine those flawed policies with systemic rent-seeking opportunities, you actively push everyday people off the hard road of real production. You funnel them straight into these fast-paced, informal, speculative markets. So a frantic currency market isn't a sign of economic dynamism, it's actually a massive red flag pointing to a defective economic structure.
All right, Step 4. Why imports are not national production.
We really need to break this down. Even if foreign goods come into a country through incredibly grueling, dangerous, unofficial channels like kolbari, they do not represent domestic wealth creation. Sure, the individual courier might make a personal income, but in the grand scheme of things, those goods represent production and value add exclusively for the country that exported them. For the importing nation, it's purely consumption. It simply doesn't add to the national wealth.
So, when leaders throw around national slogans like controlling inflation or growing production, our source makes it crystal clear what that actually means. It means our own domestic factories have to spin faster. We have to create value internally, within our own borders. It absolutely does not mean just jacking up import stats or inflating the volume of middleman brokerage deals. Bringing in more foreign boxes? That is not production growth.
And finally, step 5, the true path to welfare.
According to the analysis, true welfare rests purely on these 3 pillars. Number 1, you need the creation of real, tangible goods and services. Number 2, you must have genuine domestic value add happening inside the country. But it's this 3rd pillar that is absolutely crucial. You have to have a fair and optimal distribution of resources and income. Without that fairness, rent-seeking will completely devour a society's potential for happiness, no matter how huge the production output might be. Basically, production without fair distribution is just a dead end for societal well-being.
I'm going to leave you with this final, profound question from the source to ponder. Is an import-only speculative economy truly growing? Or does real, lasting welfare require the fair distribution of purely domestic value add? Understanding this distinction is the absolute key to reading between the unwritten lines of macroeconomics. It's how you recognize that fine border between the mirage of growth and actual structural development. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning the data behind the headlines.